to one of our live streams, Frequently Asked Questions. Last week we covered a number of topics in our previous one, so this is part 2. We covered gallbladder issues, what's the best diet, why can't I lose weight, do supplements work? Those were our last 4. Today, this might be bold, but I'm going to try to cover our hormones safe, why do I have allergies, why did I develop them at this age, why am I so fatigued, what do I do about cholesterol, krill oil versus omega-3s, that continues to come up. And now, recent information, one researcher trying to say that vitamin D is really bad, you should never take it, it's harmful, and people are breaking bones and dying from it. I don't even know that one should be addressed. I don't know that I should waste my energy or your time, but we're going to. Well, thanks for being with us. I know these are not specific, and we've broken up, we've taken specific topics, and we will continue to do that. These, I believe, were questions we wanted to answer because we get them so frequently, we thought we would condense them, and I know you'll be helped and you'll be blessed by it. So again, thanks for being with us. We have a lot of other live streams that we've done. You can always go back, scan through, just hit the arrow button on the live stream archive, and it'll take you back through dozens and dozens and dozens, everything from leaky gut in depth, allergies in depth, premenstrual syndrome in depth. I think I won't even want to redo that one. That needs to be readdressed. So we've got a lot of just good information back there for you. Without further ado, let's get rolling. Frequently asked questions. Let's start with number 1 that we're gonna go with today, and it's, are hormones safe? What about hormones? You know, I'm in my 50s. I'm a female, and I have hot flashes and night sweats. I'm a man. I'm a male in my 50s, and I've got low libido, and I'm just tired, and I just don't have much in the way of energy. What's going on? I think the real key is, first of all, here, number 1, you've got to evaluate. We need to know what your values are. What are they? Are the numbers low? So for women, it would be an estradiol level, it would be a progesterone level. Now remember, I'm not going to give you all the details of this for right now. Estradiol, progesterone, testosterone. We need to know what a woman's values are so that we can assess whether or not you would need to replace. Number 2, same thing with a man. If your numbers are low, if your testosterone is low, your estrogen is high, men, your DHT levels are high, well then that needs to be addressed. That very specifically needs to be addressed. But then the second layer of this, that this is the values, the numbers, if you will, and then the other part of this is it's subjective, right? Your sense of well-being, and if your sense of well-being is down, then we need to take a closer look at the role of hormones. All right, so that's just a quick overview on how do you assess symptoms, how do I feel, what's going on, and then the laboratory values. Now the next step is to consider what are your options. Well, your options are going to be animal-based hormones. They're going to be synthetic. So there's 2 separate ones. For example, conjugated estrogens are principally estrone, which is the most powerful of the 3 estrogens. Your body makes very small amounts of that, so why would I recommend to someone to use that as the total package or their whole dosing of all these powerful animal-based, estrone? Does your body make estrone? Yes, probably only about 10 to 20% of your body's total manufacture is estrone. So why would you replete with that? So the key is, do I use animal-based hormones or do I use synthetic? Or can I just try some plant-based products? We have a great plant-based product. That's a combination of 3-4 different herbs. That's wonderful. That's really helpful for Fem Support Plus, for women with hormone imbalances. But if this is affecting your quality of life, you can't sleep, your hot flashes are so severe that it's impairing your ability to sleep and function. Maybe work is impaired. When all of these problems are affecting your ability to get through a day, to your family, manage your home, manage work, etc., that's when it's a problem. Then, now, the next layer is, so we've covered 1, 2 areas, Third area is what type? What type am I going to use? What am I going to use? And this area is still very controversial. I'm not real sure why it is. Because if I am having difficulty getting through a day and functioning, my life there's upheaval. I've tried some of the plant-based. I've modified my diet. I've cut back on caffeine and sugar. I'm using some sleep essentials to try to sleep. Nothing seems to be helping me. I've got vaginal drying for women. Guys, I'm tired. I have no energy. I feel like I'm depressed. I'm blue. Now you've got to be looking at some type of replacement. And at that point, I'm just going to use some generic thing. You need to have some labs done. DHEA, cortisol. We need to know what your estrogen is, what your testosterone is, what your progesterone is, as a quick glance. Now, we have tests that can do this. And again, I don't want to get into all the details of that. But this is just saying that we should evaluate then what the numbers are. And then we should replace with only what we would call biologically identical hormones. And all that simply means is that they are identical, the exact structure to what human production is and to what literally comes from, if you want to call it, man-made sources. You should never be putting into your body hormonally what is not exactly the same structure. Why? Because then you have excessive stimulatory to target hormone tissues or to receptors. So you should only put back what your body is making. So hence, what we would then recommend, if it's a gal, we would recommend something that has, estradiol in it. The physicians that we work with, estriol, microionized progesterone, where necessary, testosterone, to replete. And then your levels should be then retested. And we should make sure that you're excreting them well and that your levels are in a reasonable range. You never want to take someone outside of a therapeutic range. So hormones, what do you do with hormones? If you've transitioned through menopause and you're doing fine and you're not having much in the way of problems, and you've used something like our Fem Support Plus, and you've modified your diet, and you've cut back on caffeine and sugars, and you're doing pretty well, then this conversation is not for you. If you've done the basics and you're having difficulty, now the conversation needs to take place at a deeper level. What are my options? Animal-based or synthetic? I think those are out. Can I do something that is perfectly safe, that never has any potential problems? Bioidentical hormones are still hormones, and you still need to treat them with respect and with great care, and they should be monitored. You need to work with professionals that know what they're doing. Make sure that you're excreting them. Retest. Not just say, I want to get rid of my symptoms. You have to be able to match symptom with use and with the quality of the formulations. Managing the situation. Here's what I feel happened. For eons, back to the 80s, that we knew that, for example, Premarin, when it was unopposed by progesterone, could create endometrial cancer. It was documented. Then they added synthetic progesterone, medroxyprogesterone, which was Provera. Then in the mid-90s, we found that women had a higher incidence of breast cancer. The endometrial cancer risk went down when they counteracted the Premarin, which was all estrone. But then they used synthetic progestins, and they were creating a higher incidence of breast cancer. Then in 2001, 3 or whatever, the Women's Health Initiative, they put women on these hormones and said, oh my God, after 3 years or 2 years, we're seeing women with more rates of breast cancer, et cetera, et cetera. Hormones are bad. Everybody should go off hormones. So what happened was at that time in early 2000s, women were just dropped off the bridge. They were just kind of let go. No one wanted to touch. It became the black hole, hormones. Meanwhile, physicians for years prescribed it, kept increasing doses, higher doses. You don't feel well, give you more. You don't feel well, give you more. It's FDA approved, no problem. Really, 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 shame. Never tested, never evaluated hormones, never evaluated excretion, no follow-up, other than what were your symptoms. And now I think what happens, we need to be able to bridge the gap for women, especially. Men, it's kind of I just just did a live stream on that as well. But we need to be able to bridge that gap for women. And I believe looking at biologically identical replacement with monitoring with low doses is the most reasonable approach. You still need to treat it with caution. You still need to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're working with professionals that can help you. We do it. So use some wisdom in this area. Hormones, are they safe? Can you do them? Yes, you can do them. They are safe if you're doing it correctly. Okay, balance is the key. Next, allergies. I have allergies. What's happened to me? My sinuses run. My head's always congested. How is it that, whatever, I'm 34 and I've developed these allergies. I'm 44, I've developed these allergies. My son's 19 and his sinuses are problem. He has a runny nose all the time. So I think there's a couple of areas that we need to understand as background noise. You can use over-the-counter antihistamines, decongestants, okay? And they'll manage symptoms, certainly. They'll manage symptoms, and that maybe to a degree. But then you're always at a higher risk for infection because of the fluids and so on that build in the sinuses in many cases. Lower respiratory, upper respiratory infections. So our approach is to understand what's tripping the switch for allergies. First of all, we know that chlorine in water, and I'm drawing a blank on the other, it's a version of chlorine. It's a twist on chlorine. It's used to purify our water supplies, are now being documented to increased allergy risks. Black and white. So what I would say to you is you got to drink filtered water to start. Now, what's that have to do with allergies? Everything. Because these chemicals that are used to purify water are increasing allergen risk in humans. It's just recently, a publication just within the last couple of months is documenting it. So that's the one area. Let's drink pure water. Number two, why not understand the role of probiotics? Because probiotics can reset the immune system. Specifically where? In the gut. So a lot of our allergies start with an imbalanced Th1, Th2 response, which is happening right in the gut system, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, right outside of your gastrointestinal wall. So, purified water, don't antagonize and enhance the allergy risk. Let's get on to some high doses of quality like probiotic essentials that live in the gut, that are formulated to live in the gut, are grown and harvested well, so they're hardy specimens, which your body will maintain. And you begin to write, as opposed to having a skewing that takes place on our immune systems that makes you more prone to allergen tendencies. Simply probiotic essentials can be helpful. Okay? Next, why else do I have a lot of problems with sinuses and with allergies? Well, we don't be using some of the soaps that are antibacterial soap. Use regular soaps. Don't be using things that have triclosans and the like in them. Use regular soaps. Make sure that you're getting adequate rest. Why? Because the adrenals, if your adrenals are weakened and you're overworked and overstressed and you don't get enough sleep, your DHEA to cortisol ratios change. That makes you more prone to allergies, right? Sinus or otherwise. So rest is important. So we've got to deal with the gut, good bacteria, know that the adrenals can possibly be involved, and then you should just be thinking about some real basic support. And we have a number of preps. Buffered C has natural antihistamine type properties. It's a natural way to suppress some of the histaminic response in the body. So you got probiotics, you got Buffered C, and then we have products like something called Sinustat, which is awesome for your sinuses. We also use another one called Aller7. Aller7 support. These are great to help you manage the symptoms. But always remember, at a root level, what's at the root? What opens the door? I believe that massive amounts of vaccines do, because they skew the immune system. They change and alter that Th1, Th2 response. Number 2, antibacterial soaps. We're sterilizing our environment. Not good. The products that are used, the chlorine derivatives that are used in water supply, are documented to induce and encourage allergies and imbalance the immune system of humans. Don't drink chlorinated waters. Antibiotics. Excessive antibiotic use increases yeast and fungus overgrowth in the gut. That increases your allergen response. So antibiotics, the more stress you're under, low cortisol. So you always have to see that there's background noise. You didn't just develop these allergies overnight. They didn't just happen. These allergies could be rooted in excessive antibiotics, allowing for yeast or fungus overgrowth, multiple vaccines, skewing the immune system, because that's what they do, contrary to medical belief. I could be using just straight tap waters that are, the chlorinated water is affecting my immune system. So these all open the door. There's more, but that's a quick overview. Adrenals that are blown out are often a surefire way. And when I see that folks, they're in their 40s and 50s and now they're developing severe allergies, the first thing I start thinking is, what's going on with their adrenals? Because if their adrenals are blown out, you're going to have an imbalance in your immune system. That cortisol to DHEA ratio starts to shift. Adrenals are weakened, make you more prone to hypoglycemia, headaches, fungal or yeast overgrowth, increased allergies, lack of a sense of well-being. So the adrenals play a key role here. But also know that you have a couple of preps that you can use. So remember, the question was posed, frequently asked questions, why am I developing all these allergies? Why do I have these allergies? So I want to give you some background, and there's more, but I don't want to get into all. I want to keep it right on the surface. And then there's always some quality natural preps that you can use. Sinustat, Aller-7 support, Buffered C, probiotic essentials, because we're always looking at indirect ways, right? Indirect mechanisms to balance the immune system. Okay, hormones, allergies. Why do I have allergies? Why am I so fatigued? Why am I so tired? A big issue today. And we've done live streams specifically on that, but why am I so tired? First of all, for many of us, we don't sleep well. We're distressed. Our sleep patterns are so broken that we have broken REM sleep. That is hugely problematic, which decreases our human growth hormone production. Human growth hormone is the precursor, in essence, to your other hormones. So sleep, I believe, becomes a key factor in why many folks are having difficulties in this area of fatigue. So if we just look at the next slot, fatigue. All right. Have you had a B12 level done? Have you had a 25 OHD level done? Have you had a free T3, a free T4, TSH? Have you had, because a lot of times you're not converting this because you have a low selenium content, you have a low zinc and low copper status in your body. So B12 levels can encourage fatigue. Low vitamin D indirectly plays in here. Poor thyroid functioning. Well, I went to the doc and they said my thyroid's fine. And they did a TSH level. Well, TSH alone is not enough. We need to know more. So if you're chronically fatigued and you're chronically just tired, I'm not talking, someone could have fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue where no matter what they do, they're blown out. That gets down to a mitochondrial energy supply, energy reproduction. And that's another issue. I'm just talking about people who just say, man, I just can't quite get a grip. I just feel like I'm burned out all the time. Well, maybe you are because you don't sleep well. Maybe you are because your thyroid is not functioning well. You could have low B12 and actually your iron levels should be evaluated. And then our old standby, what about the adrenals? And if you're unsure and you are very, very fatigued and we can't get to the root, you should do a saliva adrenal stress index. You basically give saliva samples 4 times a day, morning, noon, 6 p.m., and roughly midnight. This evaluates a 24-hour circadian rhythm that many times will tell us where our fatigue is rooted in. So, adrenals, thyroid, two basic areas, B12, iron, and vitamin D, sleep patterns. I mean, those are some basics. And then the other part is, what does your diet look like? Many that are just fatigued eat way too many carbs, way too many breads, way too many refined carbohydrates that cause blood sugars to spike and then drop. And what we have is roller coaster blood sugars. And when I hit these bottom parts, the bottom out of the blood sugar maintenance, what happens is it triggers more fatigability. And then I'll crave and eat more carbs. So for many, it is rooted in a very poor diet. It starts many times, I tell you where it starts. Many times right here, poor diet, poor sleep, you're not recovering, you're not recuperating. And then, so this I would say is 1. This is 2. Adrenals certainly fall into the 3rd category. And then we start rolling in, you look in a little more depth at thyroid and some of these other areas. Now, once again, is this all inclusive? No, but this is a pretty good overview. If it's not in one of these 5 areas, we have to really start digging a little bit deeper as to the roots of your fatigue. But if it's just like, I just can't, I don't know what happened. You know, I've had 2 children after the birth of my 2nd child. I'm just tired. I'm just run down. I just can't figure it out. You know, and I will tell you that maybe the other area that in this too is for women in particular, not as much guys, but in women, is female hormones. So we come back to female hormone evaluations. Because if women are having very hard PMS, premenstrual syndrome, their estrogen is imbalanced, the progesterone is deficient in relationship to estrogen, and there's a lot of hormonal issues, that takes a huge toll. I think guys just really have no idea how fluxes and changes in hormones through the course of a month affect a woman's sense of well-being, and they're huge. So that would be maybe number 6, but I hope that gives you a quick overview, quickly, right? Quickly, just a smattering. This is not an in-depth today. This is just to get you thinking that if you have questions along these lines, you know, I can't get over what's going on with hormones. Can I do this relatively safely? What are the interventions? I'm really tired. What about these allergies? I've always got these allergies. I'm going crazy. That gives you a quick smattering on those 3 areas. The next area that I want to talk about, and then we're going to take a break. Maybe we'll just take a break right now, and I'm going to try to come back. And let's just talk about krill oil real quick. That seems to be coming up more and more on the dockets. And I pulled a research piece. So here's my krill. The questions just seem to be going crazy on this, like krill versus omegas. Now, we have people coming in now and just saying, I want krill. And basically my question is why? Well, I heard it's better, it's superior to omegas. I heard. I mean, really, that's what we always get. I heard. Someone told me. What's it based on? So about 10 years ago, I looked into the krill oil issue, and I still have some of the original paperwork. And when we did the analysis at that point in time, what we came up with is that you had to use a ton of krill, a ton of it, 3 to 4 times as much krill as you did straight omegas to get the same level of efficacy. It doesn't make sense. The cost doesn't make sense. It's really expensive if you want to get an equal amount. So what I did was, just so you don't have taken my opinion, but a researcher, Robert Guillaume's a PhD, I believe he's a biochemist, did a complete analysis on krill, essential fatty acids, forms and structures, and let me just read you a couple excerpts. In the past decade, the market has been flooded with information about the use and purported superiority of omega-3 fatty acids from krill. These claims primarily come from 2 properties of krill, that is, derived mostly of phospholipids as opposed to triglyceride. It contains trace levels of astaxanthin. As of this writing, only short-term very limited comparisons are available to ascertain the bio. So first of all, the research is scant. So let me make that clear. It's very scant. There's not much. That's what's shocking to me, what it is about us that we think we're always sitting back and waiting for the newest. Oh, Dr. Oz had on some guy talking about, and now all of a sudden it's the craze. And everybody runs and wants to go get now this krill. Or someone heard from a sister-in-law that krill is, when you hear these things, are they based and rooted in fact? They're not. They're absolutely not. There was 2 basic studies. One of them, they did a 7-week trial. I can't get into the details of this. They're talking about plasma fatty acids. They compared krill, etc. The authors who were advocates of krill suggested that the data was proof that a lower dose of krill is equivalent to a higher dose. Closer examination of the data shows that the standard deviations of fatty acid levels at both points, baseline and 7 weeks, is so large that no real interpretation of the data is possible. Even so, their data did show a statistically significant drop in arachidonic acid. Bottom line is, the literature is so scant. What's out there is weak. So let me just give you the last portion of this, because I think this is about someone asked me, say you've got to use a lot more krill to get the same effect that we know is documented in omega-3s. Let me give you what Thomas Guillaume's PhD's interpretation. Lastly, he said, the most important for practical consideration, it took 14 krill oil capsules to provide 1,680 milligrams of EPA and DHA. I see these commercials on TV. You just take this one little red pill of krill and you get everything that you need. This little red pill, this little red pearl. Literally, I want to take my shoe off and just toss it at the TV and smash my TV.
They talk like that on the TV.
I feel like they are. Little krill, take this little krill oil. Look, I got nothing against krill. If krill was superior, I would have krill. I would tell you that. But I'm telling you, 10 years ago when it hit the streets, I didn't see it. And to date, I still don't see it. I always say, may there come a point in time that it might surpass? It may, but it's not here yet. So let me give you an expert who did a complete evaluation of all the literature. Lastly, he says, practical consideration, it took 14 krill oil capsules to provide 1,680 milligrams of EPA and DHA. So let's get this. 14, get 1,680 milligrams of active ingredient. I always tell you active ingredient, not milligrams of fish oil, active ingredient, EPA and DHA. Something that can now be provided easily in 2 concentrated fish oil capsules. So literally, most formulas of omegas, 4 concentrated omega 3 800s like ours is roughly equivalent to 14. So if you want to take 14 krill oil capsules a day because you heard it was better, I guess you can go right on ahead and do it. Here's the bottom line. Even so, while providing only 1/3 of the amounts of EPA and DHA, krill oil products typically are 5 to 10 times more expensive. Why? Because if you want to get to this dosing, it is. You got to take more and it's more expensive. So how practical? The economic comparisons to concentrated triglyceride forms, which we use, which can provide obviously 7 to 8 more times EPA and DHA per cal, are similar. Unless higher amount of EPA and DHA can be delivered by krill for a much more economical price, fatty acids from krill would be at least 5 to up to 7, possibly 10 times more expensive. So krill versus omega, I don't see it. Skip the krill oil concept. Use quality omegas. Trust me, if I felt krill was superior, I'd be talking to you about it and I would be using it. Literature doesn't support it. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, some of the recent skepticism on vitamin D. Not real sure where it's coming from. I didn't want to go read it, but I'm just going to give you a quick rundown, overview. What else do we still want to cover? A little bit on vitamin D. What about cholesterol? what about this cholesterol conundrum? I don't know what to do. We get 3 or 4 of these a day just on cholesterol. Stay tuned. A couple of minutes. We're coming back. We're going to wrap up with a couple last questions. Stay there. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for staying with us through that break. I hope you enjoyed that worship song. A little word of encouragement. I like to do this each and every time. I think we could all use it. You could be an unbeliever. Just bear with us. If you're a believer, I want you to dig down deep and let this sink into you. Psalm 11, it says, "In the Lord I take refuge." This is really all about, I talked about it on the radio show this morning, this is really all about us having to realize that the difficulty of our life and the circumstances of our lives many times are overwhelming, and we feel overwhelmed by them, and we feel distracted, we can get distraught, and we feel as though many times we just want to run away. And I think the message here from David is, don't run away, run to God. Don't run away from the situations, don't run away from your difficulties, run to Him. Now, I like the analogy that in this plane here, in you and I's horizontal plane, in the difficulties of life, the only way that I can gain victory, the only way that we're not shielded from the circumstances of life. And I don't know, that's not a popular phrase right there. A lot of people believe that we are shielded from the difficulties of life. Well, I certainly haven't seen that in my life. I don't know about you. So the reality of it is, it's not about what you choose to believe, but in those difficult circumstances of life. And if you're not having them, I think I need to talk to you. Find out what you're doing, because I'm obviously doing something wrong. But what do we do? How do we handle them? Do we run to Him? Do we get vertical with God so that He can help us in our horizontal plane? It puts us in perspective. Let me just read you what the psalmist said. "In the Lord I take refuge. How then can you say to me, flee like a bird to your mountain?" In other words, run away. "For look, the wicked bend their bows, they pull their arrows, they're ready to shoot me. They shoot from the shadows." In other words, hidden. I don't even know where they're coming from, a lot of these arrows. "At the upright in heart." David's not saying that he was perfect. He's saying, I'm trying to serve God, and I feel like I've got arrows coming at me out of dark shadows. I don't even know where it is, and you're telling me that I should run to the hills. He's saying there's got to be a better way. When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? When the foundations of your life are being impaired, cut down, and knocked down, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in His holy temple. The Lord is on His heavenly throne. David puts perspective on his situation. God is still in control. He observes everyone on earth. His eyes examine them. He's aware of everything that you're going through. He examines the righteous. But the wicked, those who love violence, He hates with a passion. On the wicked He will rain fiery coals and burning sulfur, and a scorching wind will be their lot. For the Lord is righteous, He loves justice. The upright will see His face. Here's what I take in those last 4 verses. Number 1, that the fires of life, for some, it's going to burn you up. If you don't know Him and you choose not to trust in God and you think you have all the answers, literally the trials and the fires of life will consume you. What this is saying to me, and my interpretation is, that for those that are trusting and walking with God, they become a refining fire that purifies, purges, and prepares you for greater depth of walk with Him and greater service with Him. One can become a cleansing, refining fire, the same fire, and for others, it's burning you up. So if you're choosing to walk with Him, don't always look that this is going to consume me or see or perceive that it is. It is, in more cases than not, a refining fire that's preparing you for a greater depth of walk with Him and for greater service. It doesn't mean you become a Billy Graham. Your service might be right in your own home, right with your own friends, with your colleagues at work, your workplace, wherever you are. God has called you to be influencing as salt and light. I hope that helps you. Hope it encourages you. It encouraged me, so I hope it encouraged you. Let's get back to our frequently asked questions. Cholesterol, is it bad for you? I go to I hear this all the time. People go to their doctor and they get blood work done, and literally the only thing that it seems like that they're ever asked or questioned about or discussed is This thing right here, cholesterol. It's like, well, I went and had blood work done, everything was okay, my cholesterol was high. Okay, my cholesterol. So, all right, I know we're already over time on this live stream, but here's the deal. What's your family history of heart disease? We got to know that. What is your personal history of issues with heart disease? That's the first thing you've got to know. Number two, you've got to know that cholesterol is not necessarily bad for you. Cholesterol is a structural component for life. It is. It helps you to repair cells. It helps your brain. It helps you to convert sunlight in your skin to vitamin D. You have to see that cholesterol in and of itself is not evil. It is really meant for life. Did you realize that cholesterol is the precursor, it's the preamble to all of your hormones? See, without cholesterol, you can't make any of your male hormones. You can't. Cholesterol converted to pregnenolone, converted to progesterone, and it goes down line from there. It is a structural compound for all of your hormones, let alone structural repair at a cellular level. So, it quicken the skinny. What am I after? If my cholesterol is super high and I have a huge family history, mom, dad, siblings, or personal history of bypass or stents or surgery, you have to have an open eye. Cholesterol could become a problem. Now for you, what we're really after is, does it oxidize? Does it go bad? That's what that means, oxidation. Is it oxidized? Does the cholesterol go rancid? When it oxidizes, LDL cholesterol oxidizes, it becomes a potential problem. So, what's the key here? The key is we've got to have plenty of antioxidants in our body through supplementation and through the diet that reduces the oxidation process to protect them, and then attempt to use some natural mechanisms to reduce it. Steel-cut oats, raw nuts and seeds, lots of fiber in your diet, more vegetables, more fruit. A lot of vegetables, soluble fibers will help sequester some of this cholesterol. Supplement well with buffered C, perfect E, omegas, trans resveratrol or resveratrol plus. Why? So that you reduce the oxidation process. Now let's just say your cholesterol is really high and you've got to do something. You've got to consider two factors. Number one, is it being made by you? What's that mean? Well, you make roughly 70% or more of everything that's showing up in your blood work. You're making it. So, do I have a genetic tendency to make too much? You lack some enzymatic activity to break down the LDLs. You're making too much. The other part is, it's dietary. I just eat horribly. So one, I don't have any control over. It's almost a genetic issue. The other, it's dietary. So why not deal with it as much as you can from a dietary standpoint, make the changes, and then use some natural agents that help to keep healthier cholesterol levels. Quality forms of red yeast rice. We use an organic form of red yeast rice, organically grown, free of citrinin, no fungal yeast contaminants. Every batch is tested, it's assayed multiple times, clean as a whistle. It can help you. So, well, that's a natural form of statin. Another one of these I heard things. Yes, it is, technically. But what folks don't realize, there's 5 or 6 other mechanisms. Red yeast rice is a bile acid encourager. It's a secretagogue. It encourages bile, which helps you process cholesterol. It's got sterol in content, camphosterols, stigmasterols that help you to process cholesterol. Huge. And there's other products. We use pantethine. It's a great agent. We use time-release forms of niacin. So you have multiple options to manage your cholesterol, but just because you have high cholesterol doesn't necessarily mean it's going to create heart disease. There are so many other factors, and I'm going to move off of this subject. What's your inflammation markers? Have you had a HSCRP? Have you had a fibrinogen level done? Have you had an LP(a)? Are you under a lot of stress? Have you had an MTHFR? Have you had a homocysteine level? I don't want to get goofy and crazy here, but you know, we like everything tight and tidy. There it is, cholesterol, bad, evil cholesterol. Well, you could be managing cholesterol, and these other factors are completely out of control, and you're still at an extremely high risk for cardiovascular disease. So I'm not saying you kick cholesterol to the curb, but you need to be much, much more aware of what's really happening. Personally, what's your family history, what's your background with heart disease, and then know that you make it, and how can I manage it a little bit better with some supplementation, nutrients, but it doesn't always mean if someone has a little bit of an elevated cholesterol that that is inherently bad and evil, and that you will definitely have an MI. Remember, 50% of the folks that suffer a myocardial infarct, a heart attack, 50% of them do not have elevated cholesterol. They have very reasonable cholesterol levels. So that tells us that in at least, and I believe it's greater than this, that in at least 50% of the heart attacks, there are other confounding factors that we are just not paying any attention to because we like the tight, tidy statin approach to managing cholesterol and managing heart disease. A lot more to it than that. Lastly, vitamin D. Recent literature now, recent research are coming out and saying vitamin D, evil, bad. Well, I don't even know where you start with vitamin D. I'm not saying that you should just take vitamin D until it's coming out of your ears, but if your levels are low, you know, the literature shows we've got to get you minimum 50 to 60, even really to 70 nanograms per deciliter on a 25 OHD. Now, why? We know, I'm just going to give you a smattering. It stimulates antimicrobial peptides. In other words, fancy terminology for vitamin D directly is a stimulant to the immune system. Number two, it's a modulator of the immune system. In other words, people that have tendencies towards autoimmune situations, it's a skewing in your immune system. Vitamin D is a modulator of that. Why would I say that? We see that in moms during gestation, if their vitamin D levels are healthier, their children have a much lower preponderance of autoimmune conditions, type 1 diabetes, etc. Young children that have good probiotics and vitamin D levels, even under 1 month of age, infants, have lower incidence of type 1 diabetes and autoimmune conditions. Vitamin D plays a key role in modulating the immune system. Vitamin D has an impact on inflammation in the body. It has an impact on neurologic functioning, your brain functioning. It's even being related now in some areas to depression, etc. I even believe seasonal affective disorder has a lot to do with direct sunlight and vitamin D levels. I could go on literally on vitamin D alone for just 30 minutes and talk about D. Bone health, circulatory system. Your circulatory system, you're at a higher risk for cardiovascular disease if you have low 25 OHD. Clear and away. If you're a male, you have an increased incidence of prostate cancer incidence by 50% if you have low vitamin D. You're a female, you have higher incidence of breast cancer by 50% if you have low vitamin D. Prostate cancer, breast cancer, cardiovascular disease, all linked. Now, does that mean vitamin D is the answer to all of your woes and ills, that that's the only? No, of course not. But clearly, if you want to start talking about cancer, autoimmune conditions, inflammation in the body, neurologic situations, focus, attention, even I'm going to say depression. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And vitamin D plays a key role. Antimicrobial peptides, it's a stimulant, direct stimulant to the immune system. So this one, scientist now apparently has released this article saying that it is vitamin D is hurting and killing people, and you're taking vitamin D and it's hurting and killing you. You know, this guy is he John the Baptist or what? I mean, he's telling you who's coming. I mean, it's scary. It's scary. I really believe that many folks, first of all, you have to look at where the funding and the money comes from to source some of these things. And you always find that it's rooted somehow in the pharmaceutical industry. Number two, and that's the facts. Number two, you have to really see that many folks, I believe, literally thrive or get off on this because what they do is they set themselves up. Everybody's going this way. They're going to prove to you that they're smart, and they're going the opposite direction, and they're going to dispel the myth of what you believe. They're almost antagonists for the mere fact of wanting to be antagonists. I've seen it happen. The Omega article came out and said, omegas give men prostate cancer. I can't tell you the number of phone calls and emails we had on that. It was like, are you kidding me? Really? Honestly? I read it on air this morning. Another literature piece comes from, I believe, Washington State University. They've actually now documented the mechanism through which omegas actually reduce metastases in prostate. They've identified it. So this one article, this one guy, almost tries to tip the entire ship when there's dozens and dozens and dozens, literally, of literature pieces showing the benefits of omegas in prostate health. Vitamin D, you can almost name the physiologic function. It has incredible support to multiple areas of your life. And then this one situation, literally, he gets all of the, I don't understand how it happens, that these individuals, somehow they get the limelight. I'm dumbfounded. Use your vitamin D, get a level done, find out what your levels are. Do not be scared off by the nonsense that's out there. Omegas are beneficial to your health. Krill oil is not superior. If anything, it is still proving to be inferior. You need vitamin D. You've got elevated cholesterol. Put it in context to you and your personal family. You got to know what's going on in your history. Allergies, what's the deal with allergies? You didn't just suddenly develop them. There's things that are changing and taking place in your life. Your adrenals could be going south. Your immune system is being weak and antagonized by a lot of these antibacterial soaps, chlorine in the water. Get on some probiotic essentials, Buffered C, Sinostat. Build your immune system, right? I'm fatigued, I'm tired. Why am I so tired? Look at the basics, everything from what you eat, how you eat, frequency, how you sleep, and then we start looking at labs, okay? Hopefully this is helpful to you. I know it's quick. I know it's an overview. We're going way over on our time. God bless you. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you on the next live stream. Take care.